Welcome to another live stream, my friends. As always, I, Stu, will be your host here this evening to dive into some charts with you guys. This is actually the first weekend in several months we have seen this much volatility over the weekend. And unfortunately for the Moon Boys, we saw a lot more sell pressure over the last couple of days. Honestly, guys, I have some very serious concerns about the market right now that we need to discuss. But of course, the market doesn't just move in one direction. So as always, there is plenty of opportunities moving forwards both directions. If you guys appreciate these live streams, the market volatility, and just being alive in general, do me a favor, smash that like button. With that, let's start with a real quick look here on the 4-hour Bitcoin chart, you guys. My concerns already start on the 4-hour chart here. Not only have we lost our range lows here that I had basically at the top of my green box here, this was where we had bottomed for, well, several months, you guys. But no, not only did we lose that level, but we also ended up breaking the 115 Fibonacci, which I was really hopeful that it would at least hold as a bit of a fake out swing fail range kind of thing for some potential bullish support in that case. The fact that we did drop further than I was hoping, unfortunately, it just gives me bigger concerns for the market, and the weekly chart, which I'm going to get into relatively soon here, it just doesn't do Bitcoin any other favors. But that's okay, guys, because you guys know I just love market volatility in general. In my last stream, which, guys, I haven't been here streaming for a few days, been working on something in the back end, which there's something very exciting coming for those of you guys who are in my Telegram channel. Those of you guys that are going to be joining later, etc. There is something exciting coming to Stu Signals or the crypto trading channel in general. So be on the lookout over the next couple of days, you guys. Very excited about something here. But you guys, those of you in the Telegram and even in my last stream here, I did mention that I think we were actually trading right around these levels right in here. And I had mentioned that I thought we would actually end up trading a little bit higher, closer to $90,000 to just test this STUBER fib pocket. And we absolutely filled it perfectly, hit the 786, the 886. I have my entry. Still about 10% of my position running at this point. A beautiful position from the 786 there, guys. And like I said, that was mentioned. I had mentioned in on stream that basically I was going to be looking for shorter time frame weakness on the 4-hour resistance zone, and that's exactly what I mentioned in the Telegram there. For a massive profit, you guys. Like I said, I still have about 10% running just in case we absolutely smash through the floor there. But yeah, guys, for those of you who are interested in seeing way more examples, how I'm looking at market structure in general, some of my trade setups, strategies, warnings, and so on, be sure to scan the QR code to gain access to my private Telegram. And also, you guys, my partners at Blowfin are currently running this promo for you guys, for my followers. And there's approximately one more day here for this. Actually, I think this is only new signups here. So new people who want to take advantage of that and gain access to my free Telegram channel. There it is right there. So yeah, with that, guys, looking at the 4-hour, like I said, still have big concerns. The fact that we dropped so low, it is still possible we see some sort of a bounce here. Obviously, we could just be printing a double bottom a little bit lower, and then we take off from there. Who knows? But as we have right now with the structure, it just doesn't look great. That's just with naked market structure. But even actually, before I bring up this indicator here, actually, no, I'm going to go on to this chart for the 4-hour here. This is usually my 5-minute chart, but just looking at this for what it is on the 4-hour, that, like I said, that's the STUBER fib that I ended up taking earlier. If we end up getting some sort of a bounce right here, we have new structure for this midterm trend. So even looking at the 4-hour on the immediate term here, we do have a downtrend. Even if we get some sort of a nice bounce, I really wouldn't expect it to go for all too big of a run, just because we have a new confirmed lower high on the trend at approximately 84.7 thousand US dollars. And my reasoning for that is, since we did take this nasty plunge to the downside here, this would have been a low. We set this as our lower low. Highest point between the two is right here. So that would be my confirmed lower high on this 4-hour trend here. So unfortunately, if we do see some sort of a bounce, I would still be looking at continuing the downtrend, basically. So I'd be looking at something like this. I actually did mention something about this morning as well in the Telegram. my followers in the Telegram members, if you will, got my idea on this kind of a setup, how I'd be looking at playing it, where I'm laddering my entries, where my targets are, where my invalidation is, and that sort of thing. But yeah, just basically looking to play a continuation of the trend in that case. Unfortunately, the trend is to the downside once again pretty aggressively. So until that changes, I'm just going to be favoring the bears for now. Looking at the weekly, you guys, because let's face it, the weekly candle is closing in about, well, 1 hour and 8 minutes, 1 hour, 7.5 minutes. So just over an hour here. And this weekly chart looks absolutely disgusting. One thing, I mean, it depends if you were ready for this, because you guys know that even in my last couple of streams, basically since we set this big engulfing weekly candle, I had mentioned that it's very possible that this yellow box ends up giving us some grief, just because this was a little order block, right? This is where we ended up, basically where the bulls ended up pushing us up a little bit higher, and we had this higher candle body close here. So we tried to break through resistance there, and this was the order block that gave us the support to do that. So when we ended up losing that with a big engulfing candle, I had mentioned that even if at the start of the week we end up climbing a little bit, it would make a lot of sense to retest that box. And if it flips from support into resistance, the price could be in some serious trouble. And that's exactly what happened. We came up damn near pinpoint accurate and just got absolutely slammed back down from there. Unfortunately, after that, even just looking at the basic market structure once again, is this would be our support low, which we had, and we have now set a lower low. So yeah, we could still end up, we do have over an hour left. We could end up closing this candle body back above this level here, above these wicks. I would at least like to see that that's some sort of strength, but even the fact that we're closing way below our candle bodies, I had mentioned it on the daily chart the other day as well. It really doesn't look good. I understand that if we zoom out a little more, we have potential support back here. But, there is going to be those levels the whole way down. It's just that this downtrend hasn't broken, right? So yeah, if we end up finding support off of a level like this and then end up breaking our micro downtrend, then we end up starting to form some sort of a retest of support, or just staircasing higher, either or. At that point, we can talk about the possibility that this support is going to hold us. But at this point, that's really assuming that we are going to find support at a level like this, and it's going to actually reverse the trend. I'm not sure. I think if anything, it's going to be a short-lived bounce, just because the macro structure in general has been destroyed, right? The fact that we had this as our high, higher low, we ended up breaking that. So at this point, as long as we're printing those lower lows, confirming lower highs on the trend, it is what it is. So unfortunately, the weekly chart just looks really bad to me at this point. This may trigger some people. I am going to throw it out there as a possibility, just to counteract all the FOMO and the hopium because of some of the ridiculous targets I see out there. You guys, I want to bring what I consider a very realistic possibility. I am not saying that it has to happen, but I'm saying if it happens, I'm going to be ready for it. And that's the theory that we could end up going down all the way towards between $40,000 and $50,000, you guys. I'm not trying to spread FUD. I'm just trying to be realistic, because anybody who's been in crypto for more than one full market cycle, that anything is possible. October 10th should have reminded everybody that anything is possible in the crypto space. But just looking at the length of time of previous market cycles, everyone that has been literally the same, right? If we look at where the bottom of our cycles line up, it's every 204 weeks we tend to print the bottom of a bear market, and it always happens to be in a macro STUBER fib pulled with the whole bull market, basically. So if we are going to get the same thing, and guys, understand that when I say this, I'm not saying we have to go to that level, right? I want to be very clear about that. I am just saying that if the stars align, and if we end up getting the same pattern that we've got the last couple of market cycles, basically, that I would expect a bottom somewhere in the early October, basically, because that would be basically 52 weeks from our bull market peak down to, if we formed a bottom there, just like we have seen in previous market cycles. And again, just how the bottoms line up at 204 weeks. So that, again, the stars have to align. It's just a theory at this point, But if we end up being around 40 or 50,000 US dollars at the start of October, I am going to be buying as much crypto as I possibly can at that point, just because I am preparing for it ahead of time. Whenever I lay out a STUBER Fibonacci looking for a trade setup on the 5-minute chart, I don't know if I'm actually going to hit those entries, right? The signal that I shared this morning in the Telegram with the 4-hour short setup, it's not that I know that setup is going to happen, but if that setup happens, then at least I'm ready for it, right? So this is one of those things, and just why I want to throw it out there, because if you hear it now, at least you can be I shouldn't say when, if it in fact does happen, then when we have that price action, you can try and keep a level head, not that, hey, crypto is done forever, screw this Ponzi scheme, all that kind of stuff. At that point, you can be like, hey, I remember hearing about this. I remember hearing that this was an actual support level and lining up with the time frame. It just is a possibility, you guys. So I just want to throw that out there as such. Not a probability, and I'm not saying, again, it doesn't have to be in the next few weeks. That, like, if I'm looking at that, if it's even going to play out, it would be a far ways away, and that would be more so in October. So just something to watch for moving forward. But yeah, more importantly and more immediately, looking at things like the 4-hour and the daily, the 5-minute stuff like that is more so what I'm trading. But looking at the long short ratio, you guys, that's another thing, is that we still see retail so long heavy. We have almost 72% retail traders to the long side right now. And although so many people are saying that, oh, retail is so bearish, everybody is so bearish right now. Everybody is bearish. I agree. There's a lot more people speaking bearishly recently than previously. But the fact is that a lot of people are still, even if they feel bearish, they're really scared and have that FOMO of missing out the rally if it does happen, right? So there's still a lot of people building those longs. And unfortunately, if retail continues building those longs into support, that would provide us basically the market makers with the fuel for the fire, basically, to push it lower, right? Using them as liquidity, basically. So something to watch for there. If we instead start building short positions very heavily into this support level, then yeah, absolutely. I think it's possible that we get a nice little bounce. But like I said, even if we get a bounce, we do have potential resistance above us. And just that's the thing. When we form these nasty downtrends like this, Bitcoin obviously forms a lot of resistance along the way. So just something to consider there. Bitcoin dominance as far as altcoins go, you guys, unfortunately, this just doesn't seem like it's rolling over the way I was hoping it would. It still could, but even the fact that we have these wicks above this blue line, we are trying to invalidate this lower sell signal. We even printed a new buy signal relatively quickly, just kind of chopping around sideways at this point. So it's kind of mixed signals. Anything can happen yet, but it's just not looking overly bearish on this chart, as in like this looking like it's going to go to the downside, which would actually be bullish for the market, right? I want this to round over and see Bitcoin dominance drop, because that would show confidence in higher risk assets. Same with looking at the total three, basically the total market cap with altcoins included here. I can't remember if it's the top 100 altcoins or what exactly it is, but including a big bag of them. But notice we did end up filling that wick from the October 10th flash crash there. But that being said, that wick was actually a perfect retest of a 786, right? If we're pulling a fib from our lows here to where we topped out there, we came down and just absolutely nuked right to that 786 and got a bounce. And the thing is, guys, that has already played out, right? As far as that 786 support, the total three already hit the first target of the 0.5 fib, as well as the second target, the 214 fib. So at this point, when we come back down here, I don't have as much faith in that STUBER fib, just because it's already played out once. So I feel like the total three is still making its way down to at least a swing fail down here, which would be around 660 billion here. So I think the market has potential to go down a little bit. Even looking at gold, you guys, I mean, gold has been on a monstrous run. Same with silver. but they have both absolutely seen nasty volatility, looking more like a crypto meme coin than than a precious metal, honestly. But dropping 16%, silver, I think it was around 40% in one day, you guys. That's absolutely huge for the precious metals market. And just look at this nasty structure that's been broken for gold, right? We lost a higher low, we lost this structure, we lost so many structure levels here that it could be, I don't want to say for sure because it's such a strong trend to the upside for the longer term, but that is a very nasty bearish warning for gold for me. Just the fact that it's broke so much structure. Same with silver, obviously broke all this structure up here, all these little ranges up here. We lost all those levels. So even if we see these assets recover, we could just be seeing some sort of a bearish STUBER, let's say something like this, right? We'll have to see what happens. But obviously it's just something that's possible. And it's actually something that I warned about, guys, on my Telegram, with gold, right? When we got the initial dump, I had mentioned that we were retesting a STUBER fib basically. And although it's risky betting against such a strong uptrend, but there was cracks starting to show, and we absolutely continued dumping the next day, right? So predictable price action, but very nasty price action. All right, had a couple of requests. I hope you're all doing fantastic, you guys. If you guys do appreciate these live streams and the level-headed analysis based purely on market structure, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. But yeah, had a couple of requests, including, what was it, H-bar and Sui. H-bar, one thing to consider here is we are very close to filling the wick from October 10th. At this point, I think it would be kind of silly not to. Obviously, it doesn't have to. But I think that would be some potential strong support for H-bar. I don't know if I would want to set limit orders there in case it just absolutely nukes through if the market kind of lets the floor out a little bit in the near future. But if we could end up basically testing this and reclaiming this level, I think at that point it would at least be grounds for a nice tight invalidation setup for either looking for long positions at that point or spot buying. Obviously spot buying, I think that would be a good level to be DCAing into some support, just because, again, just this big wick filling, that could be the support that we need. Sui, very similar. Except it's further away yet. I think it could do the same. Basically, I'd be looking at testing this support down here just because we lost the support when we tried to basically reverse a little bit early from filling this wick. Notice that we lost that little uptrend we tried to form. We even broke some structure, right? We broke we broke some structure back here. We broke this structure here, but still we ended up just not being able to carry any momentum. We lost our support and we're working our way towards filling that wick. So I think Sui's kind of in a similar boat that it could end up going significantly lower. And it really, I think that it'll largely depend what happens to Bitcoin. But if Bitcoin does continue to drop, since it invalidated that 115 support, I wouldn't be too surprised to see it continue dumping and then altcoins basically joining the party. Solana also has a bearish fib right now on a 4-hour that I'm watching, just because of how structure has formed. Very similar to what I was talking about with Bitcoin. We have this low, we have a lower low, lower high right here at about 119 US dollars. So resistance basically starts at 114, running to about 123 US dollars. So if we do get some sort of a bounce on Solana, again, I would start to be cautious at these resistance levels, even looking on shorter time frames for short opportunities and that sort of thing. Hype got a very nice bounce. Like I was talking about in my last stream, the fact that it did fill the wick from October 10th, right? And this is one of those times, like I said, it tested it, it reclaimed this level, and then went on an absolutely beautiful run to the upside. The fact that we have now kind of broke a little bit of structure, losing that staircasing a little bit because we had this high, higher high, very micro analyzing, but it is what it is. We ended up losing that micro trend. I would not be surprised to see us end up retesting support. But obviously, if we end up, so right now on the trend, we would technically have this as a low, lower low. So we would have a lower high. So two things I'd be looking for, basically. One would be coming back and retesting our support of the range. to would be invalidating this very micro downtrend that we have formed here. So if we did something like this, then I would look at basically looking to buy a retest of support and something like that. But wouldn't be too surprised to see it end up going a little bit lower. As far as meme coins, Troll, yeah, basically retesting its double bottom here. Meme coins obviously going to be getting hammered when the market in general is getting hammered, except you know what? Bitcoin lost its lows, whereas this actually never. So, tough to say how I feel about which is doing better there. One's a bigger percent loss. However, it's at least holding structure. But let me catch up on the chat a little bit. Let me know how you're all doing. I hope you're all absolutely crushing it. I hope you're not only surviving, but even thriving in these markets, you guys. Thoughts on longing weekly support on Ethereum. I will take a look at Ethereum. I think I looked at it earlier today and I did not like the look of it. Okay. I will give it this. As far as the weekly, I think it can go it's getting very close to the 786. So thoughts on longing. Me personally, I would never trade leverage based on a weekly chart. So if you're on extremely low leverage, obviously it's a possibility. Just I would be looking at something on a shorter time frame. But yeah, there is potential support coming up, but I would just want to see some structure breaks on some shorter time frames as well. What S&P 500? I can take a look at that as well. Let's take a look at the SPX. So apparently nothing has changed since last time I mapped this out. Basically, the S&P on the daily time frame, we still have that strong daily uptrend with the MDX Trendmaster here, still holding that pink support line there. But at the same time, we are respecting resistance. So it's a little bit of mixed signals, right? We technically did set a higher high, but it never broke the 115. So it wasn't really a clean breakout. It was more looking like a swing fail at this point. But technically it is still a little bit higher. So there is a bit of an uptrend there. In that case, I will erase the bearish fibs and I would be looking at something like this for a potential pullback, which it's obviously made it to the first pullback target, but I think it's still possible. It would still be holding an uptrend basically as long as it stays above this low here for me. So still in an uptrend technically on the daily at least. The 4 hourly did break some structure. Or no. The 4 hourly would be the exact same. So yeah, one of the better looking charts from a bullish perspective, but we'll have to see if that trend can continue basically. What is Bitcoin on the shorter time frames? Yeah, so even like I said, even if we get a nice bounce, there is potential resistance on the 4 hour, but looking at shorter time frames, obviously we're at potential support right now on the 5 minute. I'm not interested in taking a long right now, just because everything from the 4 hour, I'd be fighting the trend. The weekly, I'd be fighting the trend. There's just, we could end up bouncing here. I'm not willing to open up a new short into this support by any means, but I'm also just not confident in the bulls right now. I just think that the larger time frames have such bigger concerns at this point, unfortunately. Stu, when looking for trades on the 4 hour, do you typically look at the shorter time frame first when the price goes to the 4 hour 786 to the 115 range? Yeah, typically, because it actually depends. If I'm in the mood to be trading with higher leverage and a more pinpoint accurate entry, or I think it's dangerous, if I think things are too volatile or the ranges are too big on a 4 hour, then yes, I will zoom in. if I'm willing to just take a stab at a swing position, I don't mind lowering the leverage and basically laddering into my position at my 4-hour fibs as well. But yeah, if I'm trading with higher leverage and looking at more of a scalp entry and hoping to catch a runner with it, then I'll wait for that shorter time frame confirmation, basically. What do I think about the CME gap? I mean, generally they fill. Yeah, so again, that's one of those things where sure the CME gap could fill, but in that case we still wouldn't necessarily be breaking a lower high or anything like that, right? So I think it's very possible that the gap we've just created would end up filling, whether it's right away or it's later in the week. Like who knows when it's going to fill, if it fills. But yeah, it still wouldn't make me bullish thinking that we're going to fill this. If anything, I would be thinking that, hey, we might get a bounce that I can end up shorting. But yes, I think there would be quite a large gap forming with us right now, basically. Anyways, guys, I think that's about all I wanted to go over today. So one last time, if you guys do appreciate these live streams, please do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And also, guys, just like I mentioned, if you want to see way more examples of how I'm pulling Fibonacci's, how I'm looking at market structure, just how I'm viewing the market, giving warning signals, you know, all that sort of stuff, you guys, if you want to see more examples of that, do yourselves a favor, scan the QR code, get into my private Telegram channel. And like I said, you guys, be on the lookout the next couple of days. There is something big. There is going to be a nice, juicy announcement on one of these live streams any day now. So be on the lookout for that. And again, one last time, if you appreciate these streams, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And with that, I'm out. Stay safe, my friends,